I bought the first practice, Oundle Veterinary Surgery, in 2001. We grew that over the course of the next sort of 5 or 6 years to the point that we probably reached saturation point in the local area. We got our first assistant on board at that stage, and we were wondering what to do next. So we headed down to a neighbouring town called Thrapston, which we pulled a lot of our client base from, about 40% or so. We found a fantastic premises there. It was an old doctor's surgery that didn't need too much in the way of converting to become a really nice little veterinary practice. And we opened up our first branch there. That has been really successful. A couple of years or so later, we opened up Stamford Veterinary Surgery, which is actually a standalone practice, so it's outside of Sampson Park. But we had a timber frame building, or a shed, as I still call it now, on a garden centre car park, and that flew. It really went very well. It was amazingly successful, so much so that we very quickly grew out of the shed and had to buy a bungalow just down the road. That's now a 4-vet standalone practice that doubled the size of the bungalow, with extensions being added on every year, it seems. The vet and the head nurse or practice manager of that clinic bought in at a very early stage, and have really driven the growth of that business, and it's been incredibly successful. The last new startup that we did was Corby. So we rented a premises, an NHS clinic from the local council, and we've set up a standalone branch. That's been going now for about 3 years, and relatively slow burn, but it's a nice little business in the making, and certainly adds to our regional footprint. The last practice that we acquired, that we bought, was the one we're sitting in now, which is the Oundle Vets in Peterborough. We bought that about 18 months or so ago from a chap who wanted to retire but didn't really want to sell to a corporate, wanted to sell to someone who perhaps had a bit of vision and ability to make the best of what is a fantastic facility. It's a huge building. It's about 5,500 square foot, fantastically specced out, and loads of potential. So we are aiming to turn Bayer into a really successful, thriving first opinion clinic, but we're also looking to get some referral capacity into that, both for our own needs, but also widening that out to the other local practices. The next acquisition, which by the time this goes out, hopefully will be in place, is a mixed practice in Sampson, which is just outside of Daventry, which hopefully opens up the Northampton corridor for us. We're ambitious. We want to get bigger. I think very originally the driver was probably one of seeing if we could improve the rota. So we reached saturation point in Oundle in terms of the local client base. We were unlikely to get above 3 full-time equivalent vets within that small market town. So adding more practices in was probably a big part of driving, particularly improving the out of hours rota. Since then, I think the driver has become, one of recognising that actually you do need a bit of scale, a bit of size, to compete effectively. I think to exist and compete effectively in the modern industry. It's changed considerably and carries on changing every single day at the moment, doesn't it? The rise of the corporates has been fairly rapid and fairly impressive. I think the other big driver, and perhaps a slightly more positive outlook on it, is the opportunity. It really is, I think, the beginnings of the crest of the wave, or a crest of the wave, where we have a large pool of people, of vets, experienced vets who have either sold to a corporate and don't really want to carry on working for them, want to get back into practice, are too young really to retire completely, so want to get back into practice but don't really want to risk all of the capital that they've just been handed by their sale. We've also got the assistants whose practice has been sold to a corporate when perhaps they thought they might get some equity in that particular practice, and we've also got that next level down, those people that want to start up on their own, or want to have a share, a stake in their own business rather than just work for a corporate. So I think there's quite a big pool of people out there, and I think the model, the independent model, still has a considerable advantage, attraction to people, not just as vets but also as clients and owners as well. I don't for a second think that the corporates haven't brought an awful lot to the game, but I still believe that the independent sector has a reasonable amount to offer. I think one of the attractions that we've got as a relatively small business with lots of ambition is that we're not fixed in. We're not tied into a particular template, and we can vary what model we use, what tactics we use to individual circumstances, and I think that gives us a significant advantage in terms of attracting people in that want to own their own or own a stake in their own business. So I think the shared equity model is my favourite model. I think people who have a stake in the business, generally speaking, certainly from my experience, are dramatically more motivated, are generally much happier with their careers, much more productive, and I think there's a long list of benefits to those people. Clearly, my intention and my model, therefore, is to try and attract people that are interested in having a stake in the business, so that we can reach a point where they can buy in and share in the ongoing success of those businesses. What we bring to that, obviously, as I say, varies on a case-by-case basis, but boils down to some of the access to funds to perhaps buy an existing business or buy decent premises, but it also includes things like the centralised functions. So we have access to and resource that allows us to take care of some of the perhaps more mundane, simple things, but they're essential to make sure that the business is run effectively. Things like payroll, things like IT, things like human resources, recruitment, etc., etc. We've already got people who are doing those things, so adding into their role is fine. And of course, what that does is take away from the clinical directors, the leaders on site, the need for them to spend their time doing that, and it allows them to focus and concentrate on looking after patients, looking after clients, growing the business, leading the local team without having to worry about some of those perhaps slightly less interesting things behind the scenes. I will invest in those people that I believe in and that can show me that they are going to be successful in terms of building up a business. I've done it many times now, and frankly the track record is pretty good. It works. So I think the people side is you can never underestimate. We can have all of the systems and the processes, and of course they're essential. You need systems and processes. You need the centralised functions that we've talked about to make businesses a success. But really they all boil down to, especially in this industry, especially in the independent model, which I've always likened to a retail or a shop. It might be a fancy shop. We might be selling specialisms and expertise and products that you can't buy from any old shop. But at the end of the day, it's a retail environment. It's a shop, and it's a very competitive retail environment, as most retail environments are. So we have to do it well. And I think to do that well, you need well-motivated, good quality people that have a vested interest in making sure that is a success. And I think that leadership permeates down to the rest of the team, on the particular at each particular site. And if the ethos is there, if looking after the patients and the clients is top of the list, then everybody has that same ethos, and everybody else will perform to that same level. So people in our model are at the heart of it all. I'm really enjoying where we're going now, and I'm far from saying it's all roses in the garden, but it feels to me as if we've got a real avenue forwards here. It feels like the model is got legs. It works. It feels like there is this groundswell, this crest of a wave, however you want to word it, of people out there that are genuinely interested in the model going forwards. So I'm genuinely excited about what the the next few years bring. At this stage of things, I have got no thoughts whatsoever around exit. I've got no real thoughts around plans and targets for how many practices, but I certainly want to carry on expanding the model and seeing where it can take us to, and hopefully getting a lot more people on board and giving them the same sort of satisfaction, the same sort of remuneration, the same sort of enjoyment of their careers as frankly as I'm having.